This might be the dumbest thing I've ever made. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that a couple months ago, Pope Francis passed away. A few weeks after that, Pope Leo XIV was elected to replace him, the first ever American Pope.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
Now, the process by which a new Pope is elected is called a conclave. And like many others, I watched the film of the same name around this time and became fascinated with the process. Basically, all of the cardinals in the Catholic Church gather together at the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City and take a vote on who the next pope should be. But in order to be elected, a candidate needs a 2/3 majority of all of the votes. If no one gets 2/3, they keep redoing the vote until someone does, a process that can take mere days to several months. On top of that, the cardinals completely isolate themselves from the outside world until someone is elected. Whenever a vote fails, black smoke is emitted from the chimney on the roof of the chapel. But when a vote succeeds, white smoke is emitted to let the people of the Vatican know that there is a new Holy Father of the Catholic faith. And for some reason, my first thought was, can I make this in Minecraft with Redstone? And for this video, I think I'm just going to record it while I work on it. Okay, so I've put together a base that's about the size of the actual Sistine Chapel, and then looking at the setup, there's a bunch of these like small tables on the side where all of the cardinals sit at to write their vote. So then up front, there's another small table where they go and cast their vote. So what I think I'll do is have some type of inventory block up here that they can put the vote inside, and then a hopper down below to take it out. Okay, so now we need a way to display the votes. And the Sistine Chapel is actually really tall, so we have a lot of wall room. But there's also a bunch of like beautiful art on the Sistine Chapel, and I don't know if I want to block any of that. So I'm thinking, what if we use concrete powder for this? We can have concrete powder fall down from the ceiling, and they'll stack up, one for each vote, and then we can see side by side who has the most votes. But then I think what we could do is have some type of false wall here, and then have another little section back here where we bring the concrete powder up, and then spit it out over here to drop down. So my initial thought was to make a big line of bubble elevators and then shoot concrete powder into it to get transported up, a lot like something I saw in a recent Jazzy Red video, but I forgot one fundamental mechanism of concrete powder. But then I remembered this video from Michael23B, where he showed you can transport up concrete powder using slime blocks and something called float alignment. So now I gotta see if I can make this tileable for all of the different colors. Okay, so after making some adjustments to Michael's designs, I think I've got something working here. So with this one, you can select any single color of the concrete powder and fire them off individually, and they'll all get brought up using the same redstone. And then we can collect them right here to count the votes. Then when we're done, we'll just drop them back down below the floor. And these don't even need to be fired off individually. We can select any size subgroup of these and fire them off all at the same time. Okay, I've got it installed here in the actual build, and I've got all 16 colors of concrete powder. Now, I had to split them in 2 groups of 8 because of the piston push block limit, but it seems to be working pretty well. You can see, yep, it's rising, and then up here, I use some banners to conceal where the powder comes out of. So I think that does a pretty good job of displaying all the votes. And we can just flip this lever back here and drop them all back down with some sneaky pistons. But that was just the display. Now we want some redstone to actually count the votes. So in order to be elected, a candidate needs a 2/3 majority of all of the votes. So that means that that number is going to change depending on the number of voters. But I want this system to work for any number of votes. So I think the best way to figure out that number is to count the votes as they come in, but skip every third vote, and use that count as the number needed. So I think something like this will work. So in here I've got some paper to represent the votes, and then here there's some items to count up to the votes needed. And then in this dropper there are 3 swords. And as long as there's at least 2 swords in here, when a vote goes through, it will count up an item for the votes needed. So we've got 2 there, 2 there. But now, before we send the third one through, we only have 1 sword left in here, and that signal strength is not strong enough to overcome the signal strength from this comparator. This comparator will block the signal from getting through on that comparator. If we push that, Now we've got 3 votes here and 2 votes here. Also, because of this circuit here, once the 3rd vote goes through, all 3 swords get moved back into this dropper. Okay, so I've just been pressing this here for a while, and now we have 30 votes in here, and we have 20 votes needed, which is 2/3, exactly. So this should work perfectly. So before I insert this circuit, I want to figure out how I'm going to process these votes. And I think I'm going to need to sort them out using item filters, and so because of that, I think what we'll actually use for the votes are just the different colors of dye. Alright, so I've set up some standard item filters here for all of the different colors of dye, and you can see they're coming through. And then I also added this line down here, which will power every time a vote comes through, which will eventually hook up to that circuit down there. Now, when the votes come through, they're not going to go directly to getting counted with the concrete powder. They're going to get stored in these barrels, and then once all of the votes come through, then we're going to start counting them. We have this line here, which is powered, locking these hoppers, and we'll just unpower it briefly to count them one at a time. We'll also need to know when the votes are done being counted, so I've added this line of comparators here, which will keep this redstone line powered as long as any of the barrels still have votes left in them. There you go. We can also use this logic to determine if there's a winner. We'll just count down the number of votes needed at the same time we're counting down the votes. And then if any one of them matches or exceeds the number of votes needed, we can detect that. Alright, I've gone ahead and added the circuit that counts the number of votes needed, as well as some logic for whether the vote succeeds or fails. So now I gotta hook up the vote counting system to the concrete dispensers. And I think some wall stone will be good for this. So I've hooked this all up so that when items get pulled out of this upper barrel up here, they'll briefly pause in this lower barrel here. That'll cause these trapdoors to flip, which can instantly send a signal down through the wall segments. And then when they flip back down, it will fire off the concrete powder. And I've also gone ahead and made a clock here that'll start pulling the items out of the barrels one at a time. Plus a button right back here that'll activate the clock when it's time to start counting the votes. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and give this whole thing a test. So I'm going to load all of these different dyes in here. And by the way, there are 60 total items here. And there they are going through. And, as expected, we ended up with 40 votes needed, 2/3 of 60. Okay, let's go ahead and try this thing out. Oh, here they come. Oh man, that's really cool. That's so good. There we go. That's really cool. I really like that. That's so cool. And because there was no 2/3 majority, the failure line activated. Alright, let's see if we can activate a success. So I have 10 and 5 items here, so the 10 should get the 2/3 majority. And we have the 10 votes needed, and let's activate it. Okay, great. Now let's check down here, and yep, we got the success. Awesome. Okay, so I think the last step now is to make the chimney, which emits either white or black smoke, depending on whether the vote succeeds or fails. And I think the best way to do this is to use the particle effects from 2 different tipped arrows. And what we can do is bounce the arrows up and down on a slime block to sort of give off the smoky effect. Okay, so I think something like this will work really well. So we can just choose whichever smoke color we want, and then fire off a bunch of arrows of that color with a dispenser. And then a piston will push all of those arrows onto the slime block. And then we can just use a simple clock to repeatedly activate that slime block and bounce the arrows up and down. So then we can just build a chimney around this, and this will go on the roof of the build. Also, as long as these arrows are bouncing up and down, they'll never despawn or lose their particle effect. So we can just have this run for as long as we want. And then when we're done, we just turn off the clock, and the arrows will despawn after about a minute. Okay, so I've got the system hooked up where the chimney's gonna go. So we've got the white smoke hooked up to the success line, and the black smoke hooked up to the failure line. And then this gray line will deactivate the slime block bouncer, And that will get activated whenever we flip the lever that drops the concrete powder back below the floor. Also, take a look at this beautiful delay circuit. Gorgeous. So lastly, the smoke is only going to be visible from outside of the chapel. But I want some indicator inside the chapel to tell if the vote was successful or not. And at the back of the Sistine Chapel, there's this altar that I think will be good for that. So back behind the altar, I've rigged up some droppers and a dispenser that have lingering potions of the smoke color we want. And that way, we can see the smoke from inside of the chapel too. Just don't get too close to it. Okay, so lastly, I wired up a few things to make sure everything resets properly, and I think this thing is done. So I've gone ahead and pasted the build in a regular Minecraft world. Now, we just need a Sistine Chapel for it. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
The power of Christ compelled me.
So, as you just saw, my friends DeepSeaHermit and Thin Man Mr. Jones built this Sistine Chapel to house my build. And it looks really good. Except, there's definitely one thing missing. Of course, the Sistine Chapel is covered in these gorgeous frescoes, including its iconic ceiling, famously painted by Michelangelo. Now, I can't have a Sistine Chapel without these paintings. I need a Michelangelo. Or Michael A, if you will. Now, unfortunately, I don't know any Michael A's. But I do know a Michael B. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Welcome to the Sistine Chapel.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes, it is. But it's not complete. And that's why I brought you here. You see, I need a Michelangelo to paint it. Or Michael 23B Jello, I guess.
Alright, I might be able to figure something out, alright?
Alright, get to work. Absolutely beautiful. Thanks, Michael.
You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help. Now, where's my money?
Okay, bye, Michael. Well, I guess all that's left is to host a conclave. Alright, hello, Cardinals. Welcome to the Conclave. 4 of us have entered, and only 1 of us will leave. As the Pope. The other 3 will still be Cardinals. Okay, let's conclave.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I guess one by one we can go up to the front and present our arguments to be the Pope.
Friends, colleagues, I may just be a simple country cardinal, but it strikes me that our aim as a clergy, as a church, ought to be clear. We're gonna kill the devil.
Indeed, I have come to apply for the position of Holy Father. Not only because that would make me the ultimate daddy on this mortal plane, I also have some great plans for the Holy See.
And let us look to our forefathers of the Church. Pope Sixtus I, Pope Sixtus II, Pope Sixtus III, Pope Sixtus IV, and Pope Sixtus V. There has not yet been a Pope Sixtus VI. I will take on that name.
What if I do some miracles for y'all? How would that be? So I am gonna turn water into wine. It's cooking. Aha! I have made a bottle of wine with my magic power of God.
That's the devil's magic.
Fellow cardinals, this is not wine. It is the devil's drink.
Friends, how shall we kill the devil? With firearms?
Considering my extensive experience as a Discord and Minecraft moderator, I am uniquely suitable for the position of Pope.
As my last act as Pope, I promise to you all, I will excommunicate myself for realsies this time. Thank you.
Behold now, as I, the great Tyrant 44, walk on water.
I don't think the humble servant of God is supposed to call himself the Great.
I asked the Lord, and he said he's totally cool with my plan to kill the devil with guns.
Bible study will be rebranded as Bible and Chill.
We must rename the Septuagint to something much more pronounceable.
I like the idea of renaming hard things to name. Can we do the same thing for Worcestershire sauce? This conclave has gone on far too long. I think we should do something for the first time in conclave history and open the doors.
Hell yeah, bring in the bitches.
Wait, am I the bitches? So I would like to propose the idea that I become the next pope. I don't know what my new pope name would be. I'm leaning on it being like Steve or something, because I don't think there's been a Pope Steve.
There have been Pope Stevens.
Okay, well, what about Billy? Okay. I'll be Pope Billy, and I think in honor of Pride Month, I'd be like 10% more gay.
I have a clarifying question for you, Hob, specifically about the name. Would you take on the title Pope Sixtus VI? Because we haven't had that one yet.
That would be my middle name. Yeah, Billy Sixtus VI.
I too have a clarifying question. You
Yes.
did mention that in honor of Pride Month, it would be about 10% gayer, I think you said.
Yeah, that would put me right about at 20%, which is kind of like double.
Cardinal Yahob, how would you feel about slay the devil with firearms?
Yeah, I mean, I'd want cannons too, or something, or like maybe some anti-aircraft.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All right, Cardinal Yahob, I also have a clarifying question. How do you
Yeah.
feel about renaming Worcestershire sauce to something more easily pronounceable?
Oh, I already call it wash your sister sauce.
Okay.
Conclave.
I've heard enough. Shall we put it to a vote?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I see how this is going.
Yeah. No,
We
I think
have
I think
a
it's funnier this way.
new pope.
Oh hell yeah! Woo!
Pope Billy Sixtus the Sixth.
Oh, he's just flying around.
Okay. How do I look?
Jesus.
Oh my goodness, it suits me
I like
so
when
well.
Yahob.
I like it.
Great.
Alright, we're in need of a new pope.
See you guys. I gotta find out what I need to do next.